Hello, this is Rick Wallace. I want to talk today about the Leadership Matrix, a 9-step process that I put together. It is really the foundation and the structure of this online course. It's really a process for success. About 20 years ago, the SBA did a study of small businesses, and they found that only 20% of them made it to their 5th year anniversary. And that they termed as successful small businesses. But what they don't tell you that is of those 20%, 80% of those ended up when the time was over, it's time to close the business, locked the doors, and all they had to sell were the assets. They had built up no equity, no value in the business other than the assets that were contained. So what that tells you is that of all the small businesses that are started, that only 4% of them end up being businesses in which the owner has built up value so that they can retire on it or pass it on to their children. So it's pretty startling. And so really what we're going to talk about is how do we become one of those 4%? How do we become so successful as a company that we build value, equity value, that's really worth all the effort and risk that we've taken to build this company? Earlier in this program, you learned about what my definition of success is, and that's being able to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, with whom you want to do it with, and in a manner you want to do it. In other words, doing what you want to do, your purpose, your why, working on the important things in the business that you love to do, that you think you're bringing the most value to, and being able to control your day so that you can do it when you want to do it. And you surround yourself with A players, people with whom you want to work with whom you like going to work and being around all day, and in a manner you want to do it. In other words, your profitability is good and you're building that equity value that I talked about earlier. So where are you on a continuum of 0% to 100% on each of those areas? And that's where we're going to talk about a process to get you further to the right, to the 80, 90 percentile on those 4 areas by the time that we're through. You know, most business gurus, most people that we listen to, motivational speakers, they talk about transforming yourself and that you need to transform yourself. And Sally Hogshead, this quote's from her, but she said, you don't have to transform yourself to be a success. You simply have to be your best more of the time. So what does that mean? That means to me that you are working on the right things and that you focus on them more of the time. So that's being your best. If you can define what the right things are to work on and then focus on working on finishing them, executing, shipping, then you're going to be building a successful business because you're going to be being your best more of the time, focused on the right things. Now, what are the right things? Well, I think the right things fall into 3 categories, under 3 categories. One is time, one is people, and one is money. I think those are the 3 aspects of success. The things you can do, the right things to work on, will always fall under one of those 3 categories as far as I'm concerned. So what do you want and deserve as a small business owner? I think business that's organized, of course, an atmosphere that's enjoyable to work in, if you enjoy going to work, a business that is growing profitably, no people pain, you got good teamwork, people work together, they're engaged with the business and with their teammates, people who are accountable for results, not just for being busy. There's less stress, you have a balanced life. A business that doesn't rely on you to work. Back to that building value and equity, you have to have a business where you don't have to be there to make it work. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth anything. It's just a job that somebody will be buying. And a business that has true value, as I just said. So what do you believe is holding you back? You know, your business depends too much on you. Your people are not accountable for results. Your company's not profitable enough. You don't have enough time to do everything. Your marketing's not working. Your cash flow's tight. You're not managing effectively. You don't have controls and structure. Really, and why are you here? You got a job, really. If all those are problems or some of those are your problems, you really have a job, but you're taking all the risks. And I know that's not where we want to be. So if you identified all those problems and all those pain points, then you probably know the solution. So why haven't you fixed them? Because we usually know what to do. I've found that to be true of small business owners. They know what to do. They know the solutions. They have great ideas, but they just don't seem to be able to execute. And in this case, the excuses are usually you believe you have to transform yourself. And we've already covered that. You don't have to transform yourself. You just have to be your best more of the time. You have to do the right work and do it more of the time. Focused. Knowledge. I don't know what to do. Well, the knowledge makes no difference. It's really the doing that makes the difference. The knowledge is easy to find. It's the commitment and the action you take from that knowledge that are going to solve these problems and make you a success. You're just too damn busy. We're just bouncing off the wall with the fire hose in our mouth, reacting all day long. Everything depends on me. You feel like the whole world's on your shoulders and nobody else can do the job. Everybody's there to support you. You're just going to go get the results. Everything depends on you to get the results. And everybody else is in a support pro. We can't have that, so we got to fix that. And don't know where to start. Well, you've started taking this course, so you've, I hope, found a place to start. And the place to start is the first lesson that we had. Do the right work. Learn about essentialism, deep work, rocks and pebbles, blocking time, focusing. Those are the key on the right things. So we're going to work today on this lesson talking about what those right things are and how to identify them. Change is necessary but hard. Yes, it is. But you can't break habits. You have to develop new ones. For every result, there's a perfect process for getting there. And what we're going to talk about today is a process that's going to be better than the one that you've got right now. It's going to get better results than the ones you have right now. And we all tend to start and stop. There's little discipline. We don't have a good process for following through and executing. That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to propose to you that the big obstacle to reaching that success that we want is that we spend all day reacting, managing, and trying to keep things in control and stable. If you're doing those things, you're managing, you're not leading. And that's what we're going to talk about, the leadership matrix, how to lead, how to execute. Peter Drucker said management is about doing things right. Leadership is about doing the right things. And remember, we want to be doing the right things more of the time. Okay, so how do we get started? Well, you read a book from the beginning to the end. You run a business the opposite way. You start with the end in mind, and then you do everything you must to reach it. So that's where we're going to start, with the end in mind. Jim Collins wrote the book Good to Great. Probably heard of it. It's probably one of the most famous business books there are. But there's a few key learning points in that book. And the first one that I got was if you want to be a great company, and the difference between a good company and a great company is that a great company in the end can say we have the right people doing the right things right. If you can say yes unequivocally to each one of those, you've got a great business. So that's the end. That's what we want. Now what are we going to do to get there? So first thing is clarity. We have to know what the end is. If you don't know where you're going, you might not get there, said Yogi. So we need clarity. We need to know what our vision, what our goals are, what our purpose is for being here. Focus. Those are the habits. No problem can withstand the assault of sustained thinking. So we need to focus on three things. And then execution. How do we take this plan that we've built, this clarity, this purpose, this vision, these goals, these tactics and strategies, and how do we execute them? Because remember, knowledge is not enough. We have to do. So wishing is a way to remove oneself from what is going on now. Hope is how most of us avoid growing up. So, in other words, back to what we said, you can't wish this stuff. You can put it all down, you can have the greatest plan in the world, but if you don't execute it, it's worthless. So we're going to learn how to execute. So putting together the right people, doing the right things right, with clarity, focus, and execution, we have a process, a 9-step process. A review, the solution. For every result in your life and in your business, there's a process that's perfect for creating it. If you want to change a result, you have to develop a new process. So what we're going to talk about today is the process by which we're going to lead your business to success. So here it is, the leadership matrix. Across the top we have the right people doing the right things right, and down the side, clarity, focus, and execution. So the right people and clarity is core purpose, vision, goals. The right things, and once you have this in place, it's very clear what the right actions, tactics, strategies, and rocks you need to implement and execute to be able to reach those goals and that vision. Done right are our core values. That's how the first thing we fall back on when we don't know what to do in an organization, or what are our core values. Focus, we've got engagement. We need people engaged in our core purpose, our vision, and our goals. We need people engaged in the team. The right things, once we determine what they are, one person will make accountable for these projects and rocks and tactics. We're going to do a little bit every quarter, but there's going to be one person accountable. Done right, something called 2-second lean is a process. Process improvements throughout the business. And 2-second lean is a great program that we'll talk about. Execution, we can have all this in a plan, and we'll build a plan with all this in it, but then we're going to execute that plan. And we'll do that with weekly coaching conversations, scorecards and dashboards, and training. So we're going to cover all this in the next few minutes. So let's start with the right people. You can't send your ducks to Eagle School. You know, Elbert Hubbard made this point. There's something rare, something finer far, something much more scarce than ability. It's the ability to recognize ability. So we have to recognize talent out there, and we need to get that talent working with us and for us. And you have ducks in your organization, and we're going to find out that some people just aren't coachable. Some people just will never be an Eagle. So we don't want to spend a lot of time and effort sending them off to Eagle School. So what are the kinds of people? What are the right people? Well, the right people to me are called A players. And A players have 3 characteristics. Number 1, they're competent. They have the skill to do the job. But more importantly, they're committed and they have the will to learn and get better at what they're doing. And the third is engaged. They have the thrill. They like being there. They believe what you believe as far as your purpose and your goals and your team. They believe in the team. They're not there just for themselves. Now, we've all had and probably do have employees that are very competent at what they do, highly skilled, but they don't have that commitment to get any better. In fact, when we come to them and talk about getting better, they usually tell us to go away, leave me alone. I've been doing this for 20 years and I know what I'm doing. Engaged, many people are disengaged. They're so disengaged that they're talking poison constantly about every change and every thought and every idea you have in the business. They're over there being the naysayer, running it down and being a poison in your business. Now, some people are coachable. They may not be A players today, but they are coachable and can be, but they have to have these attributes, these characteristics, before they'll ever be able to be coached up to an A player. Now, I've had people tell me, I can't have all A players. I can't afford them. Well, the first thing you're going to learn is that we've got to treat labor as an investment, not an expense. The Container Store, they believe in A players. They have A players in every position. They may cost them 20 to 30% more than a comparable average person for their retail stores, but they produce 300% more. They run their stores with 1/3 less people than any other retailer. They pay them a little more. They pay them 20, 30% more, but they produce. And they have less cost of labor because they have fewer people, but the best people. So the right people and clarity. What is core purpose? What is why? If you give a person a job, they'll work for your money. If they believe what you believe, they'll give you your blood, sweat, and tears, says Simon Sinek. And let's start with why, which is a video that I'll have you watch later in this program. But core purpose is your why. Where you can bring the most value, where you get your passion and your joy. And it's not building machines or selling silk pajamas. That's not, whatever your company does, what they do, they have, you know what you do, you know how you do it, but you really know why you do it. A higher level core purpose that everybody can believe in, that we're doing good work here for some reason. We're helping people in some way. We're serving people in some way. We're helping them reach something. And that is a higher level thing than what we do and how we do it. To give you an example of that, there was a man walking down the street. And he walked up and he saw this guy laying bricks. And he asked him, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm laying bricks." He said, "Okay," laughed and walked down the street a little more. Saw another guy laying bricks. He asked him, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm building a wall." Thought, okay. He walked down the street a little further and he said, "What are you building? Or what are you doing with laying bricks?" And he said, "I'm building a cathedral." So the question is, which one of those guys would you want working for you? So mine is helping people exceed their expectations and reach their dreams or success. Now I spend 90% of my time pursuing this purpose. It's fun, it's motivational, I have a passion for it, I'm adding value most of the time. And what I really love doing is learning, sharing the learning, and creative problem solving. And I find that as a coach, I'm doing all those things, some of those things, 90% of my time. So it jazzes me up. I have a passion for it. Unlike when I worked in the corporate world, where I got to a point where maybe 10% of my time I was doing one of those things. Now that we understand what the core purpose or your why is for your organization, we look at what your vision is, the end of the book. You know, Kennedy said we want to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. And he did it. We did it as a country. He wasn't around, but he set the machine in motion, the research, the development, the technology, the desire, the motivation, and the country got it done. Gates wanted to have a computer on every desk by the end of the 1990s. Well, he didn't do it but he came very close. Vision is directional. Another great example is Mother Teresa. Her vision was feeding the poor. Well, she didn't feed all the poor, but she fed more of them probably than anyone else ever did. So it's directional. We may not reach it, but it's a direction in which we want to go. It's a direction and a focus. You know, we wanted Nike to be the world's best sports and fitness company. Once you say that, you have a focus. You don't end up making wingtips or sponsoring the next Rolling Stones world tour. So a vision not only gives you that direction, but really sets the highway out and gives you a focus on where you want this company to go 10, 20 years from now. So you can see we've covered the right people, clarity, core purpose, vision, goals. Now we're going to talk about core values. Core values, researchers found it actually doesn't matter what your core values are. What matters is that you have them and you align the entire organization around them. And you're willing to hire and fire people based on having nothing to do with their actual job performance. That last sentence is critical. Remember I talked about A players? Remember I talked about the fact that they were committed and willing to get better and learn and be engaged? Be engaged with your core values. Be engaged with your purpose, your vision. Be engaged with their team. If you've got people that are really good at what they do and are willing to learn, but they don't do that last part, they're not engaged with you, they still can't be considered an A player. And Tony Heish has built a whole company around, at Zappos, around their core values and the culture of the business. Core values are extremely important, but they can't just be put up on a sign or in the water cooler. They need to be lived and they need to be ingrained in everybody in the organization. And we're going to learn how we do that in this presentation. Core values or your culture we fall back, and why it's under the column of doing things right is because really it's a starting point. If you're not there, or the boss isn't there, or the manager's not there, and I don't know what to do, that's the first place I fall back on. What are our core values say? They'll give me some indication of how I ought to handle this situation. Should I or shouldn't I do these things? Favorite sayings sometimes are core values of the boss. That the employees kind of roll their eyes and smile because they know in this situation the boss is going to say this. The starting point for right people doing the right things. And they don't change. And you would fire someone who broke them. A lot of people say, well, my people are blue-collar workers, whatever. All this soft stuff, no good. I don't understand it. Don't really want to have anything to do with it. Here's an example, and you'll find more of this in the material. But a team called the All Blacks, a rugby team out of New Zealand, started in 1910, I believe, and for 86 years they had like an 80% winning average. And what happened was in the early 2000s they went downhill. They had a lot of problems. Then they had a big shakeup, brought a new general manager in, new coach in, and they established these core values. Sweep the sheds. Sweep the sheds is about cleaning the locker room. So sheds in New Zealand are called, locker rooms are called sheds. So sweep the sheds. Humility. 2-second lean, being able to come in, keep things clean, keep things organized, but everybody, including the coach, cleans up after themselves and keeps the locker room clean. Follow the spearhead. No one gets in that's uncommitted or disengaged. They just don't fit in. So we don't let people into our organization unless they're A players, unless they're engaged with what these core values say, unless they're engaged with what an All Black is. Keep the Blue Head is all about focus and not choking and not panicking in situations. Champions do extra, committed to improving you and everything around you. So champions do extra. That's the part about going out, getting better, learning, doing the extra to be better than anybody else. That's a key component of A players, and that's one of their core values. Leave the jersey in a better place. Be a role model for people after you and for kids all over New Zealand. In the article it talks about the fact that there are a lot of great rugby players that will never put on an All Black uniform. The reason is they don't fit in. They don't believe. They're not engaged with the core values of the All Blacks. What happened? Within 2 years they won the World Championship and they back to their winning ways. The next step of the process is engagement. So we've got the right people, core purpose, vision, goals. We've got core values. Now we need focus. We need engagement. We need to get the right people engaged with all these things. So engagement starts with having something to get engaged with, and second of all, it's communicating it and ingraining it. So only 17%, this was a study done by Stephen Covey, 23,000 U.S. employees about 10 years ago or so. Only 17% said they had a clear understanding of what their organization is trying to achieve and why. The purpose of the organization. What are we here for? Why are we here? Only 20% were enthusiastic about their teams and their organizational goals. Only 20% said they had a clear line of sight between what they did in their job and the team's and organizational goals. In other words, engaged with the team, engaged with the company, engaged with the goals. 20% only. Only 15% felt their organization fully enables them to execute key goals. And then only 20% fully trusted the organization they worked for. So that's a lot of data, a lot of information, but I took it and said, okay, how can I make this more understandable, easier to understand? So to make it more relatable, I went back and thought about the Bad News Bears, the baseball team, and thought about it from a soccer standpoint. Anybody that's ever watched or been involved in a 5 or 6 year old soccer game knows what I'm talking about. So using that data that we had before, only 2 of the 11 players on the field would know which goal is theirs and how to score. Only 2 of the 11 would care. They'd be waving at their parents and chasing butterflies and picking dandelions. Only 2 would know what position they play and what they're supposed to do in that position. Only 2 would feel they had the coach's okay to pass the ball or kick it in the goal. and 9 players would be keeping the ball away from their own team members. So that's what a team of soccer players would be like if we took that same data from employees of companies and translated it into a soccer team. Not going to win many games unless you're playing somebody a lot worse than you are. A little humor. I've got it too, Omar. A strange feeling like we've just been going in circles. That shows that getting the right people in the right place and having them engaged in what we're doing will get us going in a straight line, get us going toward the goals and the vision that we have. If we don't do that, we're going to be going around in circles. So that brings us to goals, actions, rocks, tactics, whatever you want to call it, strategies, the right things to work on, and the clarity of the goals that are going to get us there. So a lot of people in small businesses and in big businesses tell me I don't need to set goals. Only 3% of small businesses know where they're going to be in 12 months. That's an SBA study. Isn't it ironic that that fits very closely to the 4% of companies that ever build a company of value so they can retire on it or pass it on to the kids? I'll tell you my story. I was sitting here after working with some small businesses and understanding how important it was to set goals. I thought back on my career and I thought, well, I never set goals. I'd go to places, they'd tell you, motivational speakers set goals, do this, do that. But I don't ever really remember doing it. I maybe wrote some down once and forgot about them. But I succeeded. I did real well in my career. And so I couldn't put the 2 and 2 together. I saw how important it was for a small business owner to have goals and a small business to have goals, but yet I didn't do that. So I thought and thought and thought, looking out the window, and then it hit me. When I was in corporate life, somebody else was setting the goals for me, the president of the company. They were setting goals, and if I met those goals, exceeded those goals, I got promoted, I got raises, I got more responsibility. Whatever it was I was seeking, I got because I met or exceeded the goals that were set for me. Well, as a small business owner, there's nobody there to set the goals for you or your people. You've got to set those goals. And if you think about it, without goals, there's really nothing to measure in your company. There's no focus or direction. There's actions without goals equals chaos. If you've got a lot of action going on, but you don't know where you're going, you're going to have chaos. No way to prioritize actions and resources. Remember we talked about working on the right things? How do you know what the right things are if you don't know where you're going, if you don't have goals? There's no way to align the team. Back to that bad news soccer. Smart goals, that's what we want. Not just goals, but smart goals. And a smart goal is specific, measurable, accountable, realistic, and it has a time frame. And lastly, commitment is essential. It's not a target. It's not a forecast. These are goals. They're numbers. They're measurable. And I get a lot of that from people in small businesses when I sit down and say, what are your goals? Well, a goal to me, there's a story about that tree right there in the snow. There was 2 kids out looking across that field at that tree, and one kid said to the other one, I bet I can get there faster in a straighter line in the snow than you can. So the other kid said okay, and they bet $5 and they both took off. Well, of course the kid that made the bet stood by the tree and watched his friend coming across the field in a zigzag pattern, looking up occasionally and finally getting to the tree. And when they looked back, of course, the kid that got there the fastest in the straight line in the snow, his tracks were right to the tree. The other kid was all over the place. The difference, the kid that took the bet, that went all over the place, he looked down into the snow and he made sure that each of his steps were directly in front of the step before it. So he was looking down, making sure that everything was in place and that he was very careful to put one foot in front of the other to make a straight line in the snow. Then he'd look up every once in a while, get a little bearing and readjust. The other kid, he simply looked at the tree and walked right to the tree. That's the power of goals, and that's the power of setting goals and being committed to them. So what's the difference in a goal and an action? Well, here's an example I think that everybody can understand. I could ask somebody, what is your goals for this year? And a business owner might say, well, we need to build a new marketing plan. We need to build a new website. Those are not goals. Those are actions. The end game is the goal. So what could our goals be? These would be the actions to get there. Our goals could be, we'll grow revenues by 15%. We'll generate 200 new leads. We'll add 25 new ideal customers in 2013. Those are SMART goals. Those are goals with the end in mind. Now, if we're committed to making those goals, you should have people saying, okay, then we need to build a new marketing plan. We need to build a new website. We need to do this. We need to do that. Those are the actions that are going to make those goals come true. That's the difference. You can't have a true goal unless it's measurable, a SMART goal. So the leadership matrix, now we're going to talk about rocks and actions. Now we're going to talk about accountability. So accountability. We want people to be accountable for results. Most small businesses have a lot of people that feel like they're accountable for being busy. Everybody's busy, 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 busy. So we want to get an organization where everybody's accountable for results, not for being busy. Only one person can be accountable. You can't have a team be accountable, or Bobby and Susie are accountable for this project. You have one person that's accountable. They can bring the resources together, but they're going to make sure that it gets done. They're going to report on it. The buck's going to stop with them. You've got to learn to do this and delegate. If you delegate these tasks and make people accountable for these projects, these tactics, these rocks, the right things we got to work on little by little, they're going to grow. Your business is going to grow. The value of your business is going to get better because less and less are they depending on you. You can't build a valuable business if it depends on you to work every day. Now, done right. So again, focus. We've got engagement, accountability, 2-second lean or process. That's how we assure things are being done right. I guess to make sure the right things are being done right. So it's 2-second lean. What is this about? There's more on it in this course, but basically it's a program where you're empowering and engaging everyone in your company to fix what bugs them. You're teaching them how to see waste and eliminate it, whether it's motion, whether it's waste, there's 8 kinds of waste in an organization, and your job is to empower your employees, educate them, help them find that waste, and then eliminate it little by little. And when we say fix what bugs them, that's waste. If something in the past, we've all been patted on the back, and we pat our employees on the back for fighting through things to get the job done. We don't want that anymore. We don't want people thinking that they have to come to us, right, to fix things in the business, because they won't do that usually. We want them fixing what bugs them. We want them empowered to do those things on their own. And a great story that exemplifies this. And the guy was retiring from a factory after 20 years. He's looking around. They're having a party for him. He looked to his peers. They had him get up and give a speech. And he looked to his peers and said, hey, it's been a great 20 years. Thanks for all the support. Enjoyed working with you guys. It was great. Then he turned to the management team and he said, thank you guys. You paid me well for these. And he held out his hands. He said, it's been a great 20 years. But you know what? And he pointed to his forehead, to his temple, and he said, but you could have had this for free. You just never ask. And that's what 2-second lean's all about. Starting to ask. Empowering people to use their head, to eliminate waste, to streamline processes, to make their jobs easier and more fun and more enjoyable. Fix what bugs them. So we're briefly going to talk about execution, which is the most important 3 steps in this whole program. And that is a weekly coaching conversation, scorecards, dashboards, and training. Remember, this is just a review, but we're going to talk about coaching conversations and what's the difference between a coach and a manager. Well, think about coaching a business. If you put a coach into business, the first thing a coach knows is they can't play the game. If they're going to win, they have to develop everybody on that team to be the best they can be. They've got to draft the best players. They got to set goals for the team and individual goals. They got to train and coach and practice, not in the game. They can't go out and show people in the game how to do the job. They got to do it in practice. They got to focus on making each player, as I said, the best they can be. And the way we do that is with weekly coaching conversations, one-on-one meetings that last 10 to 15 minutes with our direct reports. And they also draft and use free agency to fill in weak spots. They don't go into the season with the same team that they left last season with. They're always looking for talent, always building that team with the best A players they can. So a weekly coaching conversation is a 15-minute conversation with your direct reports. No more than that. We do away with reviews. Reviews are worthless. Quarterly, annual reviews, they're negative. We don't like giving them as owners or managers. And the employees like them because they're getting feedback from their boss, but they don't always agree with the way that you've rated them. So they're really of no value. They're not changing behavior. They're not really of any value. We want to replace that with some true coaching conversations using a weekly coaching scorecard. And this is a little scorecard I'll show you in a second that we can work and not have a lot of effort into this, but stay focused and following up on learning, goals, behavioral change, accountability, and engagement, all in practice, all in 10 to 15-minute meetings each week. There'll be more on this later in the presentation, later in the lessons, but this is the scorecard that I talked about, the weekly coaching scorecard. It talks about their goals up here, the skills and competencies, the things, remember, that an A player wants to do. They want to get better, they want to learn. The accountability, the rocks or tactics or projects that they're accountable for the quarter. And then our core values, we're going to talk about them every week. And so this is just a quick little scorecard, and you put green and red in there, the employee does, as to how they progressed on that particular thing during that quarter. So if you're getting a lot of greens, you're getting a lot of positive reinforcement, things are going well. If there's a lot of reds, how can I help you? And if they continue to be red after you've offered all the help in the world, you might find that you have someone that's really not willing to get better, really not willing to change their behaviors, really not willing to be engaged with the team. Lastly, training. We're going to talk about training as making sure that with core values, 2-second lean and processes, that training's there to make sure we're doing the right things right. So training, A players want to learn, remember? They want to get better. So we have to be, if they want to get engaged with that, and we know that's what gets them excited and they want to be engaged with it, we got to give them that training. And then a little training every day in the morning huddle that we talked about for 2-second lean. That's a great place to do a little bit of training every day. You'll find that if you look at the Container Store, back where they have all those A players that I said, they train probably 3,000% more than any other retail. They have over 300 hours of training every year. So training with people that really want to learn and get better is a very powerful thing, and it can be done in small amounts over a long period of time. So if you're looking for success, and I think we all are, not only in your business but for you, is it's doing the right thing, doing what you want to do. That's your purpose. When you want to do it, control of your time, with whom you want to do it with, A players, and in a manner you want to do it, profit. So this whole course is about taking this process that we just went over. We're going to break it down. We're going to build a plan with each step of that process, and then we're going to learn how to execute it.